Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sebastian's Solace. My name is Sebastian, and this is my solace. I know you can't see me right now, but I'm like gesturing that all this around me is my solace. Just imagine your favorite ASMR video, and just imagine my annoying voice talking over that video for the entire time. And that's what this is going to be for the next extended period of time. I don't know how long this is going to be. You do, because you clicked on the video and you can see how long it's going to be, but I'm in the dark right here, so I guess we'll just see what happens. Today I'm going to be talking about the Academy Awards, or as people like to call them, the Oscars. Today I'm going to be talking about my predictions for what will happen, and my predictions on what I want to happen. Those two things often do not overlap. I have predicted the Best Picture for quite a while now, and I don't think I've been right since, let's see, no, Citizen Kane? No, that one wasn't even Best Picture. Yeah, I don't know, it's been a while. So hopefully my predictions are a little bit more right this year. I wouldn't count on it, but let's find out. I want to get a few things out of the way first. One, these are my opinions. My opinions are always right, and yours are always wrong. But everybody does have their own opinions. So it's okay if you do have your own opinions. Just don't think you're right. If you wanna write down a comment, say like, hey, I actually think this movie should be nominated or should win Best Picture. That's fine, but just preface it with, hey, I'm wrong, but, and then then I'll know. The second thing is, I have seen pretty much every movie, but I haven't seen every single one. Not in history, I meant for the Oscar nominations. So there are a few categories where I don't feel right predicting them because I haven't seen the majority of the movies. So I don't think it's fair for me to judge them not having seen the majority of the work. So not that I think they're any less quality or any less important, but the categories I won't be discussing today are animated short film, live action short film, documentary feature, documentary short, and international feature film. I just want to put that out here right now because when I get to them, I'm going to be skipping over them. I may say which one I think will win, or which one I want to win at least, but don't take it with any salt because I haven't seen them all. So we got that out of the way, and I think that's pretty much it, so we can get started. Oh, and the order that I'm going to be doing the awards in, or the categories in, is the order they announced them in. So when you're thinking, why is he doing it in this weird backwards order? Blame the Academy. That's honestly my motto in life, whenever I'm feeling down, or whenever I'm going like, why does my job suck so much, or why can't I get a girlfriend, or why am I so unhappy? It's just blame the Academy. It works for me, and I bet it'll work for you too. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get started. Alright, so the first category they announced was Actress in a Supporting Role. And the actresses nominated were, I'm going to try my best to pronounce names, but if I butcher a name, please just attack me in the comments. I deserve it. So first we have Maria Bakalova for Borat Subsequent Movie Film. Yada yada yada. I'm not going to read the whole title, it's too long. We have Glenn Close for Hillbilly Elegy. We have Olivia Colman for The Father. We have Amanda Seyfried for Mank. And I'm sorry, Yoon Yoo-jung for Minari. I hope I said that right. I thought they all did a really good job. This was one of the hardest to pick for, and I'm probably going to say that for a lot of them, but I'm being honest on this one. It really was difficult to decide who I thought was going to be the best, but I really think Amanda Seyfried was the best out of this category. I didn't love Mank overall. The story was a little boring for me. I thought there was a lot of good things in it, and the acting was one of it, but I thought Amanda Seyfried was really the best part of that movie. She just kind of had this glowing charm that, like, you felt like she was an actress back in, like, the Hollywood 1930s. She just has this, like, kind of, I don't know, just something around her that just kind of, like, enlightens her compared to everybody else. You know, everybody else was drinking and smoking and kind of just being 1930s-y, but she just kind of was above everybody else. And I really thought her performance was the best part of that movie, and I think just the best out of everybody else. I really did like, again, I'm sorry, Yoon Yoo-jung. She was the best part of Minari as well. She was hilarious. I loved her as the grandma. But I just think her performance was a little bit more subtle. You know, she didn't have as much to work with as Amanda Seyfried did, and so I think that's why I'm going to give her the edge. Now, going off who I think will win, not who I want to win, that's even harder. I did think Glenn Close was good, but I think for the fact that she was also nominated for a Razzie for the exact same role, I think that kind of automatically, you know, discredits her. No fault of her own, but I just think the fact that Hillbilly Elegy was pretty panned as a movie, critic-wise, I think even if her performance was really good, she would have a hard time winning this award. Maria Bakalova, she was great in Borat, but I think this Borat was not nearly as good as the first one, and so I don't think it's going to win any awards. Again, maybe I'm wrong, but I think just because, since it has so much pressure compared to the first one, because the first one was absolutely amazing, just means that they're probably not going to win anything. It's great to see that she got nominated, though. She did a really good job. Olivia Colman, this is the most recent movie I saw, The Father. She does a really good job, don't get me wrong, and I think she is probably up there potentially for winning this. I think the Academy is going to come down to Olivia Colman or Amanda Seyfried, and I don't know, man. I think the Academy is gonna say Olivia Colman. She's just, you know, she's one of these people that have been at the Oscars a lot lately, and deservedly so. It's not like she hasn't deserved it or anything. And I think the Academy is just gonna stick with their tradition of picking people that they know are good instead of the best actors or actresses. So, I think Amanda Seyfried deserves to win, but I think Olivia Colman is going to win. I guess we'll find out. I'm sure after the Oscars come out, I'm going to get plenty of comments, or maybe no one will see this video also, but if people do see this video, I'm sure I'll get plenty of comments making fun of me on how I got it wrong, and I deserve it, so please, have at me. The next category that they announced was costume design. The nominees were Emma, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Mank, Mulan, and Pinocchio. Now, this is one of the categories where I didn't see every movie. I didn't see Mulan or Pinocchio. I honestly didn't even know there was a Pinocchio movie out there. I don't think it was the Disney version, because I think I would have heard of it then. So I'm thinking it was some other Pinocchio. I'm gonna have to look this up. So I can't comment on that one. So maybe it was the best costume designed movie ever, but I'm not gonna pick that one just because I don't know about it. Mulan, I just think there's too much controversy around Mulan for it to really win anything. Having seen the trailers, the costuming did look very good, and I think it probably deserved that nomination. But with all the controversy around it and also the not so great reviews with it, I don't think it stands a chance against the other three. Emma is a really good period piece, costume-wise. I didn't love the movie. It was okay. I did like all the performances, and the costuming was probably one of the best parts of it because it was very, or at least it seemed very authentic. I wasn't around during that time to quote the authenticity of Emma, but it looked authentic, so I guess that does its job. But I really think it's going to come down to Mank or Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Both of those were movies that took place around like the 1920s, 1930s, that kind of time period, but you kind of wouldn't know because they were pretty different from each other. But I think that's just part of it, doing with the class of the people portrayed in the movie, because in Mank you're dealing with 1920s, 1930s Hollywood, which were at the time some of the richest people on the planet. I'm sure there were other, like the oil billionaires and everything, but still, they were definitely some of the wealthiest, and they dressed like it. They were in extravagant costumes and tuxedos and all this kinds of stuff, and even that was like at parties, and even like during the day, everybody was wearing a suit and tie, and that was the style back in the day. And I thought they did a very good job of making it look authentic. But Ma Rainey's Black Bottom was really good too. It didn't deal with as high class of people. The band members, they were probably they definitely weren't low class, but they were definitely much lower than the Hollywood elites. They, kind of had more, they did wear jackets and stuff, but it was more common man, something that you would see on the street anywhere in any city, not just in California. Viola Davis, who played Ma Rainey, she did dress quite a bit better than everybody else because she was the star. And I think, that she dressed appropriately. And I don't know, man, this is really tough. I personally think that Ma Rainey should win, and it's not that Mank was any less good. I'm an English major, and I'm saying things like that, so I guess you can tell my credibility. But anyways, I just think the fact that Mank was in black and white just didn't help to the costuming, because everything was basically gray, whereas in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, the color aspect of it allowed everything to pop a lot more, because when Chadwick Boseman bought those like bright yellow shoes, like they might have said yellow shoes in Mank, but like you wouldn't be able to tell. So I think just because of the color aspect, I think that's going to give Ma Rainey's Black Bottom the win, personally, and I think the Academy will agree with me on that one. But if Mank wins, I also wouldn't be surprised. If something else wins, I would be, other than Pinocchio, again, I didn't see that one, so maybe that one's really good. But if Mulan or Emma won, I would be honestly pretty surprised. So it's probably going to be one of those two then. The next category they announced was original score. For those of you not in the music industry, which is me, that means music, basically. The nominees were Da 5 Bloods, Mank, Minari, News of the World, and Soul. I'm gonna pretty much eliminate News of the World and Minari right away. Again, not that they were bad. None of these movies were bad. When I eliminate something or say that, like, you know, the other ones were way better, it's not saying anything negative against the other movies. It's just that the other ones were so much more better, that it's, you know, it's that. I don't think anything nominated this year was legitimately bad. I think the only thing that I could really argue that was like a little bad was Hillbilly Elegy, but the only nomination that got was Glenn Close as an acting nomination, and I think she was good in that, so I think she deserved it. So yeah, looking back at these nominees, I don't think any of them didn't deserve the nomination. So I just want to get that point across. Some years, I do think there are movies that get nominated that don't deserve it whatsoever. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, animated feature film might have a couple. We'll get to that. But anyways, so for original score, yeah, I think we can just get rid of News of the World and Minari. Again, not that they were bad, but they weren't quite as memorable as the other three. And I think I'm going to get rid of Da 5 Bloods as well. Again, it was a very good score, but personally, I didn't like the movie very much. I thought it was pretty boring. And I know that it doesn't have to do with the score, but the score, it just, like, it was fitting, don't get me wrong, but I just kind of felt like I had heard it a lot before in different forms. Like, it didn't seem I'm not saying it like plagiarized or anything, but like it just kind of felt samey compared to other like war movies I've watched. So that's probably why I don't think that one will win. And the fact that that's the only nomination that movie got. People are arguing that they should have gotten a few more nominations. I'm not one of them. I didn't really like the movie, but I can see why people would like it. So I'm not gonna say they're like wholly wrong, just a little wrong. So then that really leaves it down to Soul and Mank. Soul has a more re-listenable soundtrack. It's got a lot of great jazz music, especially if you're into jazz. And even if you're not into jazz, I think this is pretty accessible jazz music. You know, it's not any weird like fusion jazz or any just like, you know, like the really crazy stuff. And it's also not too boring either. It's not just elevator music. But I think it's definitely more re-listenable than Mank. But I think Mank's gonna take this one because just something about that with like the typewriter in the soundtrack, it just felt so right. Like, you know, it like when you think back to that time period in like the 1930s Hollywood, 1920s, whenever it was, it just felt so authentically that time period. And, you know, it worked well because of the sound. It worked well because, you know, the typewriter with the Mank is the writer. You know, it just worked well on so many levels. I personally think that one deserves to win. And I think it's going to win Best Score as well. I think the Academy will agree with me on that one. But I also think Soul is a very close second, and I definitely would not be surprised if that one won as well. Alright, so the next category that they announced was Best Adapted Screenplay. And the nominees were Borat Subsequent Movie Film, The Father, Nomadland, One Night in Miami, and The White Tiger. I got to see 4 out of these. I did not see The White Tiger, so unfortunately I can't comment on to that one. But for the other 4, I think this is a pretty tough one. I don't think it's the toughest one. I think Supporting Actress was one of the tougher ones, but doesn't make this one easy. I think, again, like kind of earlier, I think we can knock out Borat. Just because, not that Borat was bad, but I think it doesn't hold up to the first one. I think the first one is so much better, and then they're gonna look back into that one and be like, well, that one won an Oscar, but this one isn't as good as that one, so should it win an Oscar? And I think that's gonna, kind of weigh into some people's minds. So I don't think Borat's gonna win for this one. So that comes down to The Father, Nomadland, and One Night in Miami. Now, personally, I don't think Nomadland will win. There are some awards that I think Nomadland will win, and we'll get to that. But I just personally think the script wasn't the best part about that movie. It was a very good movie, don't get me wrong. But the script probably was definitely not the best part about it. So I think that narrows it down to The Father and One Night in Miami. And I'm actually going to give it to One Night in Miami. One Night in Miami didn't have... So other than the beginning and the ending of the movie, pretty much the whole movie took place in one room. And it was just people talking. And if you had told me that before I went into the movie, I would have thought, okay, this is going to be a boring movie. But it was anything but a boring movie. It was very interesting. It asked a lot of good questions. It kind of made you think. And I know other movies do that, don't get me wrong, but it just made you think internally, externally, and just think about the world, think about the time period, because this took place in the 1960s, 70s, one of those two. I think it's the 60s. I've seen so many movies that if you try to ask me, I can remember the generalities of all the movies, but if you try to ask me specifics, like what year it was, names of characters, things like that, I'm probably not going to do too well, because I've seen so many movies in the last few weeks trying to prepare for the Oscars. So bear with me. I'm doing my best here. But yeah, so anyways, I really think One Night in Miami deserves this win. The fact that it basically is just a movie consisting of talking, and that the movie wasn't very boring, and in fact was really entertaining, I think that honestly deserves a win for that. Do I think it's going to win? No. I think it could, don't get me wrong, but I think they're going to vote Nomadland, only because, we'll get to it, but I think the Academy is going to vote Nomadland. It seems like it's primed to win a lot of awards, and I think it does deserve some, but not the screenplay. But we'll see. We'll see how wrong I am. It's very likely that I'm very wrong on all of these, but we'll see. So then that brings us to original screenplay. The nominees are Judas and the Black Messiah, Minari, Promising Young Woman, Sound of Metal, and The Trial of the Chicago 7. I am very passionate about this one. I think this is one of the best scripts I didn't read the script, I heard the script in the movie, but it's one of the best scripts that I've heard. That sounds weird saying that. You know what I mean, in a long time. The Trial of the Chicago 7. I know not everybody loved this movie, but it's doing really well with critics and fans alike. And I think a lot of people are saying that maybe the historical facts weren't entirely accurate. I wasn't around then, so I can't speak to the historical accuracy. So I'm only going to speak to the movie itself and what it presented it as. And having, not knowing much about any of these people in real life, and not knowing much about this event, I thought it did a really good job of portraying the feelings, the emotions of the time, the feelings of the characters that were in the movie, and it was just such an entertaining movie. I mean, I love a good courtroom drama, and this is one of the best ones. I'd put it right up there with A Few Good Men and 12 Angry Men. A A lot of men in the courtroom, just noticing that. But seriously, it was such an entertaining script. And again, this is not saying that the other ones were bad. I really liked Judas and the Black Messiah. I liked Minari. I quite liked Promising Young Woman, and Sound of Metal was pretty good too. But I just think the writing of Aaron Sorkin is almost unbeatable. I mean, you can disagree with his directing, but his scripts are just some of the best out there, and I really think he'll win for that one, and I think the Academy will agree with me on that one as well. So again, I'm going to skip the next two categories, animated and live action short film. So then we'll move on to actor in a supporting role. Now, this is kind of a surprising one, and I think this surprised a lot of people because Judas and the Black Messiah has two actors nominated in this category, with Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield. And again, I hope I'm pronouncing their names right. But people are kind of wondering, if they're supporting actors, then who's the lead actor? I think you could have made an argument for either of them being the lead actor, but both of them being supporting actor, that's kind of weird. And I'm wondering why they did that, because I think that's going to take votes away from one or the other. I think they both did a tremendous job in that movie, and I think that movie was very good overall. But I think the fact that they both were nominated as supporting actors is going to take votes away from each other. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I personally had Daniel Kaluuya winning Best Supporting Actor before they announced the nominations. And then once they announced Lakeith Stanfield as well, I'm like, okay, well now I'm not so sure. I didn't even name all the nominations. Let me do that real quick, sorry. You got Sacha Baron Cohen for The Trial of Chicago 7, Daniel Kaluuya for Judas and the Black Messiah, Leslie Odom Jr. for One Night in Miami, Paul Raci, I'm not saying that right, for Sound of Metal, and Lakeith Stanfield for Judas and the Black Messiah. I think you can pretty much get rid of Sacha Baron Cohen. He was not bad in that movie. I feel bad for just being like, just get rid of this person right away, because that just kind of, it seems like I'm discrediting the work. I'm not. I promise I'm not. They did a really good job. But compared to the other four, no, they're not going to win. And again, I'm always wrong, so chances are he is going to win. But anyways, I thought Leslie Odom Jr. did a very good job. He wasn't the best actor in that movie, in my opinion, so I'm kind of surprised that he was nominated over some of the other ones. But that's just me. And I think Paul R., we're going to call him Paul R. because I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I thought he was good in that movie, but it was a very subtle performance. So a lot of times those don't win. Not that it doesn't deserve to win, but it just wasn't as emotional or impactful as some of the other roles. So I think that's why he's not going to win. So then I guess it comes down to Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield, but I really don't know. I think Daniel Kaluuya had a little bit of a better performance. He was very commanding in his role. Even if you don't agree with his politics, you really couldn't help but kind of feel like you were like, I want to follow this guy. He kind of has that commanding, leading feeling that just empowers a lot of people, and I think that was perfect for the role, because that's exactly what the role was. A powerful figure who led a whole group of the Black Panther Party. And again, you don't have to agree with his politics or anything, but I think his acting was very, very well done, and so I think he'll win it, even though I think Lakeith Stanfield is going to take some votes away from him. So I'm really not sure. I think he deserves to win it, and I think he will win it. But if they do happen to take votes away from each other, then I think it's gonna go back to I almost said Lamar Odom, Leslie Odom Jr. I think he's the next runner-up. So if they do take votes away from each other, I think it'll be him. I'm gonna take a short commercial break, and then I'll be right back. Welcome back to Sebastian Solace. Yeah, I totally forgot that we don't actually have any sponsors, so we can just ignore that last little part and let's just keep going. I'm gonna start with 3 categories that I'm not gonna cover. We're back in business. Again, I'm not going to be covering the documentary feature, documentary short, or international feature film. I haven't seen any of them, and I don't feel just to review them. So let's move on. The next category is Best Sound. This one's a little interesting because this is the first year for Best Sound. Usually it was broken up into sound mixing and sound editing. And I think the reason why they combined it into one is because oftentimes the same movie would win Best Sound Editing and Sound Mixing. So, and I think the general public didn't really even understand the difference. I took a couple audio classes, and even I don't completely understand the difference. I understand the difference, but like, they kind of go both together. So it's really hard to have bad sound editing and good sound mixing, and vice versa. Usually you either have good both or bad both. So I'm okay with the change that they just brought it into one category. The nominations this year are Greyhound, Mank, News of the World, Sound of Metal, and Soul. I didn't get to see Greyhound, so I can't comment on that one. But I think for the rest of the movies, I think there's a pretty clear winner, and I think that's Sound of Metal. The whole movie is, if you haven't seen it, is based off of a heavy metal musician, drummer, that loses his hearing. And so it uses sound really effectively, because a lot of times you don't hear any sound because you're hearing it from the perspective of the main character. And since he lost his hearing, you kind of are in his shoes where you can't hear what anybody else is saying. And then another really cool thing that they did was near the end of the movie, he gets implants. And I've never had implants, so I can't speak to the authenticity of how accurate it sounds in the movie. But it didn't sound like normal. Like, it was like everything he heard when he had the implants in was very robotic and like metallic and kind of computer sounding. And it was like a really cool effect that they did. And I mean, hopefully I never have to go through that. And I mean, I like my hearing, and I do feel for anybody that doesn't have their hearing. But also another point of the movie was, it's not someone without their hearing. They're not like, nothing's wrong with them. It's just a different way of communicating. And that's what the whole movie's about, is sign language and learning to live with it and stuff like that. So I think that did a really good job of using sound in all kinds of different ways. You had the heavy metal in the beginning, the lack of sound when he loses his hearing, and then the implant sound when he gets the implants. I just think, that the quality of the sound and the variety of it is what's going to cause that to win. Do I think that's what's going to win? Yes. I'm not super confident on that one. I do think Soul has a really good chance of winning as well. That used sounded very... I can't talk today. That used sound very effectively with the music, and when they were in the... I don't know, what did they call it? The afterlife, basically. That used sound very well and effectively as well. But I do think it's going to be sound to metal. The next category is production design, with the nominees The Father, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Mank, News of the World, and Tenet. I think this pretty much comes down to Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and Mank. News of the World was good. Don't get me wrong. The production design was very good. It did feel pretty authentically Texas, in the 1800s, I think? Yeah. It did feel very authentic. I used to live, not in Texas, but I used to live in an area that was kind of what you think of when you think of Western, and it did a good job of recreating that. Tenet, it did have a lot of cool scenes, but I think it didn't do enough with the production design, I think, to warrant a win. I think the sets were very cool and very well designed, but I think they probably could have done more with them, and I think that's why they won't win. And then The Father, the house, it basically takes place in one house. I think the entire movie does pretty much. It's a very cool designed house. I don't know if it's a real house or if it's a set, I don't know that, but it's really cool, and the cinematography and everything is great in there. But I think because it's only one house, it's probably not going to win. And I think that's maybe why Ma Rainey's Black Bottom won't win either. Most of the movie only takes place in like one or two rooms. The beginning, when they're showing old-time Chicago, was really cool. You really felt like you were transported back in time. All the old cars and the old buildings and stuff. I'm sure most of that was CGI, because it doesn't look like that anymore, obviously, but it really did feel authentic. But I think that's what's gonna probably keep it from winning, is just the fact that it was only in two rooms most of the movie. The rooms were very well designed, very authentic looking, and they did a great job, but I think just the lack of variety is what's gonna cause them to lose, and I think that's why Mank is gonna win. Mank, took you all over the place. You were on Hollywood sets, you were on the Hollywood Strip, you were in like cool rich people mansions, in film studio offices. I mean, you had all these kinds of things, and all of them looked super authentic, and I think the variety of Mank is what's going to put it over the top from the other movies. I think it should win, and I think the Academy will agree with me on that one. We'll see. That brings us to our next category, film editing. Film editing is really interesting because it's hard to say what movie has good. You can see bad film editing in a movie if a great example that I know a lot of people mention is Taken 3. If you've never seen that movie, there's a scene somewhere in the movie where Liam Neeson is hopping a fence, a chain link fence. It seems like something that would only take maybe one or two cuts maybe. I think it has somewhere around 12 cuts. It is some of the worst film editing I have ever seen. I think it's because, no offense to Liam Neeson, but he's getting up there in age. He probably can't hop a fence super easily, and so they had to do all kinds of crazy camera tricks to make it look like he was hopping the fence. Whereas, if they just got a stunt double and filmed him from the back or something, they probably could have done it in one or two takes. It just looks bad. Another one is Catwoman, the Halle Berry movie from the early 2000s. There's a basketball scene in there, and if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But it is so poorly edited that it looks bad. So, film editing is easy to tell when it's bad, but it's not always easy to tell when it's good, because if it's good, you don't really think about it. It's not supposed to be. Sometimes it can be used for effect in storytelling, but oftentimes film editing is kind of some like in the background almost. You don't like a lot of times the directors and the editors don't want you to recognize it, don't want you to notice it, and that's a good job of film editing. Again, that's not always the case, but so that's why it's kind of hard to say out of all these movies which has the best film editing. But I'll go over the nominees. The nominees are The Father, Nomadland, Promising Young Woman, Sound of Metal, and The Trial of the Chicago 7. I think The Trial of the Chicago 7 deserves to win this one, and I'm going to give my reasoning, and hopefully I can explain it well. It makes sense in my head, so if it doesn't make sense to you once I explain it, just know that it makes sense to me. So, The Trial of the Chicago 7, it doesn't do anything, I don't think, extraordinary, like revolutionary with the film editing, but I think what kind of puts it over the top of the other ones is the it doesn't have a completely linear storyline. A lot of the movie is linear and just takes place from the beginning to the end, but they intersplice scenes that take place before the story takes place, after the story takes place, and they blend them in smoothly so that you know that it's not taking place right then, but also it's not super confusing to the point you're going like, what's happening here? I think it's pretty challenging to do that, to work a non-linear story into a movie, and I think that's probably why I'm going to nominate that one to win. I'm not the best person to try and explain film editing. You know, I do editing in my videos. I do editing for fun, so I know, the basics at least. But when it comes to professionally dissecting it, I don't think I'm the best person to say. But I think that's why I'm going to pick The Trial of the Chicago 7. Again, I think The Father does have a chance as well, because there's a lot of scenes that look like they're like one shot. I don't think that's the truth, because usually movies aren't done in one shot. Even like Birdman and 1917, which are famous for their super long takes, most of those were long takes, but the whole movie wasn't like one take. The Father has a lot of scenes that look like they were done in one take, but through the use of clever editing, they can just make it look like that even though it's not. So I think The Father is a potential candidate as well, but my pick goes to The Trial of the Chicago 7. Our next category is Best Cinematography, and the nominees are Judas and the Black Messiah, Mank, News of the World, Nomadland, and The Trial of the Chicago 7. I might be a bit biased here, but I'm gonna go with Nomadland, and here's why. I used to live in Nevada, which is where the movie takes place. Not where the movie takes place, but a lot of Nevada looks the same. I'll be honest. There are some people don't know that there are forests and lakes and everything like that in Nevada, but a good chunk of it is desert. And just because, you can film a desert and, that doesn't make it good cinematography automatically, but watching this movie, I really felt like I was like back home. It felt super authentically Nevada. The wide shots were super beautiful. It just felt very, very Nevada. And I think just because of that, I think that's why I think it should win Best Cinematography. I don't know what the Academy is going to go with, to be honest. I think Nomadland is a good pick, but I also think that they could go with News of the World as well, because that's a very authentic looking movie as well. And cinematography doesn't just have to make things look authentic, but it's definitely helpful when you're trying to make a movie feel like it takes place somewhere. So Nomadland takes place in Nevada, and News of the World takes place in Texas. Like, the cinematography is important to make you feel like you're in Texas, because if it doesn't, then it doesn't do a good job of kind of reeling you into the story. If you feel like it could just be any old, Western town or whatever, then I don't think it does a good job. But both of them do a good job. So I personally think Nomadland will win, and I think the Academy is going to pick that, but they could also pick News of the World, and they could also pick any of the other ones. I wouldn't be surprised. Cinematography, oftentimes, I think there's never like a clear front runner. It's just kind of, this is a very, they're all opinion-based categories, but I think this one specifically is really opinion-based because it's just kind of like what feeling you get from the movie and what feeling that the cinematographer was trying to portray. If they line up, you're going to think it has great cinematography. If it doesn't, that doesn't necessarily mean it has bad cinematography. It just means that your visions didn't line up, and sometimes that'll cause them to vote against them. So this one's going to be a toss-up for me, but I picked Nomadland. So rolling cinematography into our next category is visual effects. The nominees are Love and Monsters, The Midnight Sky, Mulan, The One and Only Ivan, and Tenet. Now, I probably shouldn't be actually commenting on this one because I've only seen 2 of the movies. I've seen The Midnight Sky and I've seen Tenet. I haven't seen the other 3. But I think, and I could be wrong, so please don't yell at me. I'm very sensitive. I think it's going to be Tenet. I think this is the only Oscar Tenet's going to win, and I think it's the only Oscar that Tenet deserves. But because I'm personally a big Christopher Nolan fan, but I don't think Tenet is his best movie by any means. But one thing that I don't think anybody can complain about is the visual effects. There are scenes in it where I was just kind of blown away, and I was just like, how the heck did they do that? And a lot of Christopher Nolan movies they don't use CGI. They definitely do use CGI, but like not nearly as much as you think they would. So a lot of the effects and tricks you see are done in camera, which is really impressive to me. I think CGI is very important, and I think if used well, it can be a very effective tool. But I think if you can, using practical is generally the better way to go. It usually looks more authentic because it is authentic. It looks real. It's not computer based, and it almost always looks more real than if you do it in CGI, because CGI takes lots of time, lots of manpower, and it can just, even the best CGI people, if not given the time and effort, it can look bad. Which brings me to the other movie I did see, The Midnight Sky. There are lots of scenes in there that look really good and really realistic, but there's some CGI in there that's kind of not that great. And I just wonder if it's, just not having enough time to work on it, not having enough people working on it. I don't really know, but the fact that in Tenet, there was no scene where I was just like, oh, that looks fake. Where in The Midnight Sky, there was a couple scenes where I was just like, that doesn't look the best. Again, there were a lot of great scenes in The Midnight Sky, so I'm not like trying to, discredit it by any means, but I do think Tenet should win. One movie I'm surprised didn't get a nomination is actually Mank, and you're probably thinking like, Mank? That's a movie about like 1930s Hollywood. What visual effects are there? I watched a documentary, not a documentary, but just a video on the CGI in Mank, and if you haven't watched that, you don't realize how much CGI is actually in that movie. It's kind of insane because so many of the buildings are CGI, so many of the skylines, just almost like every scene is just layered and layered and layered with CGI because, Hollywood looked different back in the 1930s, 1920s. It just straight up did, and, it's really hard to recreate that with sets. So they used a lot of CGI, and the fact that until I watched this video about the CGI on Mank, I didn't realize it had any CGI. And I think that's a really good indicator of good CGI, is when you don't realize there's any. So I'm actually pretty surprised that wasn't nominated, and I might have picked that one to win. But since it wasn't nominated, I'm gonna go with Tenet. But again, I haven't seen the one and only Ivan, Mulan, or Love and Monsters, so maybe they deserve to win. I can't say for sure, but my pick is Tenet. And just based on the two that I've seen, I think the Academy will go with Tenet as well. So our next category, makeup and hairstyling. Our nominees are Emma, Hillbilly Elegy, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Mank, and Pinocchio. Again, I didn't see Pinocchio, so I can't speak for that one. But I will say, Hillbilly Elegy, it's not gonna win, but I swear, Glenn Close looks almost identical to the person she's playing in real life. I mean, they showed a picture of the real person at the end of the movie. It's really crazy how close she looks to her. The other actors, Amy Adams, and I don't remember who plays the man. I'm sorry, I don't remember who does that, but they look pretty similar to their character, the people they portray in real life as well. But Glenn Close, oh my gosh, she looks, I mean, she could be her doppelganger. So you got to give some credit where credit is due, but I don't think that one's gonna win. I think it's gonna come down to Ma Rainey's Black Bottom or Emma. Mank, I think the hairstyling was very authentically 1930s Hollywood, 1920s Hollywood, but I don't think really they did too much special with the makeup. So I think it's going to come down to Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and Emma. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, the makeup is, especially on Ma Rainey, Viola Davis, I mean, it kind of looks, it's very, I'm trying to think of the word. You wouldn't see this type of makeup nowadays. It's very of its time, but it's also very authentic. I mean, people, singers like that really did have makeup like that, and it's not that pleasant to look at nowadays, but it's very authentic and very realistic looking. Emma, I think, Emma's makeup is more over the top. It's not as authentic. The hairstyling is pretty authentic. The makeup, I think, is a little over the top, but the whole movie is kind of a little over the top. It's not supposed to be like completely 100% authentic to that time period. So I think it does a really good job. But I think the Academy is going to go more for authenticity than kind of more, I don't want to say cartoony, but just a little bit more, not realistic. So I think it's going to go to Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and I could see either Emma or Ma Rainey's Black Bottom going to win, but I think I'm also going to go with Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. They did a great job of making them look authentically 1930s, 1920s. So our next category is animated feature film. Our nominees are Onward, Over the Moon, A Shaun the Sheep movie, Farmageddon, Soul, and Wolfwalkers. I did not get to see Wolfwalkers or Over the Moon, so I can't comment on those. I've heard very good things about Wolfwalkers, so maybe that will win. But with Onward, Soul, and A Shaun the Sheep movie, Farmageddon, I think it's a pretty clear winner, and that's Soul. I did like Onward and I did like the Shaun the Sheep movie, but Soul kind of is on another level for them. It's kind of a advanced movie for kids. Like it deals with a lot of existential questions, like what's important in life, what's important in your career. It asks you a lot of things about thinking about life and death. It's a pretty deep movie for a kids movie. But it's also really accessible too. It's really entertaining, really funny. The animation is just gorgeous. I mean, there's one where like a woman is playing a saxophone, and that saxophone looks legit real. I mean, it's kind of crazy how how good Pixar movies look nowadays. And again, I liked the other two, but Soul for me is just on another level. And I think, since it's a Pixar movie, the Academy almost always picks those. So I think it's a pretty safe bet to say Soul's gonna win. Our next category is Original Song. We have Fight For You in Judas and the Black Messiah, Hear My Voice in The Trial of the Chicago 7, Husavik, I'm not sure how to pronounce that entirely, in Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga. I'm going to mispronounce this one too, I'm sorry. EOC, Scene in The Life Ahead, and Speak Now, One Night in Miami. I listened to all 5 of these songs separately from their movies, so just to get a better, better feeling for which one I think should win. And I want Husavik to win. It's a really fun song. It's a really empowering song. I don't think it's going to. I think either Hear My Voice or Fight For You. I think it's going to be Fight For You. Not only was that song, good for that movie, which takes place in the 1960s, but the song also has a lot of meaning today. Some things have changed, but a lot of things haven't changed from the 1960s. And I think it's important that, this song kind of touches on that we need to, people need to keep fighting for what they believe in. And I think the song that transcends the 1960s and today is probably what the Academy is going to pick. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did that. Hear My Voice is another good one as well. It kind of has that same feeling where, you could play it today and it would still have a lot of the same meaning. But I really do think they're going to go with Fight For You. Even though I personally want Husavik. I'm probably not even saying it right. I want that one to win just because it's a fun song. And any song with Will Ferrell singing in it is A-okay in my book. Okay, so we're getting down to the last few categories. Next is Best Actor in a Leading Role. So we have our nominees. We have Riz Ahmed in Sound of Metal, Chadwick Boseman in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Anthony Hopkins in The Father, Gary Oldman in Mank, and Steven Yeun, in Minari. I think all 5 of these guys had great performances, but I think it really comes down to 2 of them, Chadwick Boseman and Anthony Hopkins. I think they were quite a bit better than the other 3. And it's really sad, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. I think it's going to be really sad that if he does win, he won't be able to accept his award. But if he does win, I'm sure he'll be looking down at us and knowing that he made a difference in not only the acting community, but in everybody's lives. I do think Anthony Hopkins makes a strong case to compete with him. He is very good in The Father, dealing with, I'm not sure if it's dementia or Alzheimer's or what, but it's a very sad movie where the man struggling, to remember anything that's happening around him, where he is, who the people are around him. And it's extremely sad, and he does a very great job. Chadwick Boseman does an extremely good job playing a horn player who, has to deal with all kinds of issues of the time, racism and just being being poor in that time period. He brings a lot of power to that role, and anytime he's on the screen, he commands the screen. He's the guy, and you can't really take your eyes off of him. I think it's Chadwick Boseman's award to lose, but I also wouldn't be surprised if Anthony Hopkins comes in and takes it. I wouldn't be upset with either one, but I think the fact that they're really close with each other and the fact that unfortunately Chadwick passed away, I think he's going to take the award. And that brings us to Best Actress in a Leading Role, which is probably the next hardest after supporting actors for me. They were all really good. The nominees were Viola Davis in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Andra Day in The United States vs. Billie Holiday, Vanessa Kirby in Pieces of a Woman, Frances McDormand in Nomadland, and Carey Mulligan in Promising Young Woman. I think the one that's Andra Day was very good as Billie Holiday, but I think the fact that the movie, in my opinion, was not good at all, it was a pretty bad movie, makes me think that she isn't going to win. I know she won the Golden Globe, so, I mean, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I just think that the writing of that movie really brings her performance just on a little bit of a lower tier than the others. But the other four, it's really tough to decide between. Frances McDormand was great. In Nomadland, she plays a nomad living in like a van, basically, and just kind of trying to figure out what it means, kind of what life means. There's a lot of existential questions, just like, what does it mean to be a person? Like, are you truly happy with what you have, or is it, do you have to make your own happiness? Just lots of things like that. She does a great job. She carries that movie. Carey Mulligan is really good in Promising Young Woman. She really commands the screen, kind of like, but in a more subtle performance. She's never over the top. She's never like yelling. She's never shouting. But you always feel like threatened by her. Not threatened, but you always feel that she's in control, because she's manipulative in a way. She's doing it for a good reason. Her friend in college was raped, and she's going around and kind of getting revenge on all the people responsible, because it wasn't just one person. And you always feel that, like, even she's never yelling or anything, but she's always just kind of talking with like a calm voice, but she's very scary, and like, I would not want to get in her way. She does a really good job, and I think she does have a chance, but I think it's a little bit less than everybody else. So personally, I think it's going to come down to Viola Davis or Vanessa Kirby. Viola Davis is, I think, equally as commanding as Chadwick Boseman in that movie. Any scene that she's in, she's the front and center. Everybody's eyes are on her. She basically, you just can't help but have to listen to what she's saying, because she is in charge. She's Ma Rainey, after all. And then Vanessa Kirby, it's more of it's not a showy performance, but there's not a lot of chances for her to, be as commanding as Viola Davis. It's a lot of dealing with grief and depression and things like that, and I think she does a very good job of portraying that. And I think it's just really hard to decide between the two, because I think they both do an excellent job, but it's like, do you want the more commanding performance or the more subtle performance? And I think the Academy is going to go with Viola Davis, but personally, I think Vanessa Kirby deserves to win. But again, I wouldn't be upset if, honestly, any of them won. They all did really good. But my pick is Vanessa Kirby, just because I think it's not as commanding, which I'm not saying is easier to act, but it kind of comes off as, the better performance, even if it isn't. I'm not sure if I'm making sense right now. I just think Vanessa Kirby really did have a better performance. But then again, I would not be upset if Viola Davis won whatsoever. She was amazing. And so we're down to our last two categories, everybody. We're almost there. I promise I'm almost done. You've been listening to me for a while, and I hope you've been enjoying it, and I hope I haven't been too boring or too not knowing what I'm talking about. If so, you've probably already clicked off the video. So let's just get the next two out, and then we'll come back after the Oscars are done and see how I did. Our next category is Best Directing. Our nominees are Thomas Vinterberg for Another Round, David Fincher for Mank, Lee Isaac Chung for Minari, Chloe Zhao for Nomadland, and Emerald Fennell for Promising Young Woman. Now, Best Directing is pretty hard to, as a watcher, to recognize, because directing is all behind the scenes. I mean, you can assume that if it's a really bad movie and the performances are bad and the writing is bad and all kinds of stuff, then the directing is probably not the best either. But, when you have these movies where pretty much all the acting is really good, all of the writing is really good, all of the costuming, all of the makeup, all of the sound, all of everything is really good, it's really hard to say who is the better director. And that's why a lot of times you'll see Best Director often wins Best Picture as well. That's not always the case, but I think that's what I'm going to go with this year, only because it's really hard for me to say, who was the better director without being there on set, seeing the directors in action. So I'm going to go with what I think to be honest, the movie that I think that I want to win Best Picture was not nominated for Best Director. So I'm going to go with the movie that I think will win Best Picture, and that's Nomadland. And so Chloe Zhao is going to be, in my opinion, Best Director. So then let's roll into Best Picture. And the nominees are The Father, Judas and the Black Messiah, Mank, Minari, Nomadland, Promising Young Woman, Sound of Metal, and The Trial of the Chicago 7. I've watched all of these movies, and having, considered everything, the acting, the writing, the costuming, the production design, the cinematography, the music, everything, I personally found the best movie to be The Trial of the Chicago 7. Now, I know not everybody is going to agree with that one, but to me, it was just the most entertaining movie. And I think that's really important because movies don't always have to be, super entertaining, because they might have a different purpose. But if I'm bored during a movie, it can still be a good movie, but, I don't think it generally deserves to win Best Picture. There was a couple of these movies where I did get bored at times. Mank, I got a little bit bored. Sound of Metal, I got a little bit bored. So I really can't pick those two. The Father, I thought was very good and is a strong contender. Judas and the Black Messiah was very good as well. Minari was very good. Promising Young Woman was very good. But I really think it comes down to Nomadland and The Trial of the Chicago 7. Nomadland is slow, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't ever bored during the movie. I was fully engaged in what was happening, and I think it was a very, very interesting look at that type of a lifestyle. It's not meant to be as entertaining as The Trial of Chicago 7, but I still thought it was a very good look at, a type of people that most people probably don't know about. And I think it set out to do something, and I think it did that very well. And so I think the Academy is going to pick that movie to win. But personally, I really liked The Trial of the Chicago 7, and I think that should win. It was just a very entertaining movie. It kept my interest from the beginning to the end. The acting was good, the writing was good. Everything about it was very good. And, I won't be upset if Nomadland wins, but it's just a preference for me. I personally liked The Trial of the Chicago 7 better, and so I think that's why it should win. But again, I don't think the Academy is going to agree with me, and I think they're going to pick Nomadland. Whew! Alright, that's everything. And I didn't even touch all the categories, but I'm pretty tired after all this. Let me know what you think about what I said down in the comments below. Again, if you disagree with me, you're wrong, but I'd still like to hear what you have to say. Maybe maybe someone can convince me to change my mind a little bit before the Oscars air. I doubt it, but you know, it never hurts to try. And yeah, if you're interested in anything else I have to say, I have some videos up on my channel. I'm doing reviews on A24 movies. I think my first one, The Florida Project, and my most recent one, which is not an A24 movie, The Room, but it is connected to The Disaster Artist, which I'll hopefully be uploading pretty soon. Yeah, so go ahead and watch those videos. You know, leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you stayed this long. Leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and you know, I hope you come back to Sebastian and Solace. I don't know when I'll be doing this again, but hopefully again pretty soon. You guys have a great rest of your day, and thank you very much. Bye!